The key to a successful gold dredge is efficiency. It's been pretty rough this year. 3,000 ounces. We can't keep going like this because I'll never make it. We got to get the hopper down there. We got to get the screen decks, the sluice boxes. What'd you buy?
I'm excited. Let's go.
Shawn Pomrenke's mega dredge just ripped $20 million in gold straight out of icy Nome waters, and the numbers are insane. Engines screamed, ice shattered, and within minutes, the first buckets hit the surface, spilling nuggets bigger than fists, gold dust sparkling like it had been waiting centuries to be found. Monitors went haywire, readings in ounces, not grams, enough to make every rival dredge in the Arctic stop dead in their tracks. Storms slammed the dredge, waves towered over the deck, cables snapped, but Shawn didn't slow down. Crewmen clung to rails, hearts pounding, as the machine tore through frozen seabeds like a freight train. Every scoop pulled more treasure, and with every bucket, the haul grew closer to historic. Rivals circled, eyes burning with envy, but Shawn pushed full power, sluices overflowing, gold stacking into massive piles, a $20 million jackpot in plain view. This wasn't luck. It wasn't easy. It was raw, relentless ambition, and Shawn's mega dredge was unstoppable. The Bering Sea had met its match, and today it spilled its fortune. Before we dive into Shawn Pomrenke's most dangerous gamble yet, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, because you don't want to miss what comes next. The Nome Harbor had never seen anything like it. A steel monster rose above the icy docks, dwarfing every vessel within sight. Men stood frozen, wives clutched their coats tighter, and old miners muttered curses under their breath. Shawn Pomrenke's new mega dredge wasn't just another machine. It was a floating fortress of greed and ambition. A gamble so reckless that even his investors whispered it might bankrupt him before it ever struck pay dirt. Its frame fused brutal industrial muscle with cutting-edge sonar arrays, a behemoth built to rip frozen seas apart like tissue paper. Where most miners prayed before launch, Shawn raised his voice in defiance, his words echoing over the dock. "This machine will rip gold from the veins of the Arctic." At sunrise, the beast moved, chains rattled, steel screamed, and the massive suction arm plunged through jagged sheets of ice into waters colder than death itself. The crew braced, knuckles white on rails slick with frost, as sonar screens flickered to life. What they saw stopped every conversation cold. Jagged ridges beneath the seabed, crisscrossed with glowing anomalies that looked like rivers of gold frozen in stone. The younger crew whispered Inuit legends of sleeping veins, cursed to punish those who disturbed them, while elders shook their heads and warned that the sea keeps what it owns. Shawn only grinned, dismissing it all as fear dressed up as folklore. But hidden in his cabin lay a stack of brittle Russian charts, their faded ink marking these waters as Zolotoy, golden grounds. For Shawn, this wasn't just mining, it was war. Against limits, against time, against every man who ever told him the Bering Sea couldn't be conquered. And yet, beneath the grinding steel, whispers grew louder. A historian on deck spoke of Russian ships that vanished in the 1700s, holds heavy with Siberian gold, swallowed whole by storms and ice. Crewmen traded darker tales, wrecks pulled from frozen shallows, hulls stuffed with strange idols, ancient coins, and artifacts that didn't belong in Alaska at all. Some began to believe the gold they were chasing wasn't natural at all, but the shattered remnants of shipwrecked fortunes churned into the seabed by centuries of tides. Shawn laughed in their faces, calling it nonsense, but his voice carried a strain, a note of hunger that betrayed fascination. Because he knew what no one dared say aloud. If the seabed really was hiding lost treasure, then every bucket lifted wasn't just raw gold. It was history, fortune, and legend being reborn in his hands. The dredge's engines screamed like a beast awakened from a century-long slumber as the first buckets clawed their way through the icy seabed. Black silt exploded across the sluices, shards of ice spinning like fractured glass, and then, almost impossibly, flashes of gold caught the floodlights, blazing like fire in the frozen night. Monitors jumped violently, numbers spiking to values so absurd that crew members froze mid-motion, convinced the sensors had malfunctioned. But the gold readings didn't lie. Ounces where grams should have been, glittering proof that the mother vein beneath the ice had been found. Shawn gripped a nugget the size of his fist, veins of quartz splitting its surface, and laughed, a raw, triumphant sound that carried over the roar of engines and crashing ice. Around him, men erupted, hugging, shouting, pounding steel rails in celebration as if they had discovered oil, diamonds, and victory all at once. Gnome would hear of it first through crackling radio chatter. Shawn Pomrenke had struck the motherlode. No one had time to revel long. Dark clouds rolled in faster than any forecast, black and violent, and the winds screamed across the deck, turning waves into towering walls of liquid steel that threatened to engulf the dredge entirely. The mega dredge groaned under the assault, cranes shuddering violently, cables snapping with sharp metallic reports like gunfire across the hull. Crewmen scrambled, throwing ropes and chains around every post, every anchor, fighting to save millions in equipment and gold from the merciless sea. Alarms blared, their wails drowned only by the roar of wind and water, threatening to swallow the labor of weeks in seconds. Some shouted to abandon ship, others pleaded for Shawn to pull back, but his voice cut through the chaos like a battle horn, full of fury and stubborn defiance. Storms come and go, gold stays forever. And under the surreal glow of floodlights, the sluices ran golden, water and wealth mingling in a hypnotic dance as the Bering Sea tested every ounce of resolve on that deck. Even as they fought nature, other predators emerged from the mist. Rival dredges, drawn by whispers of Shawn's impossible haul, slithered through fog and rain, their lights piercing the storm like watchful eyes. Radio chatter became a battlefield of its own. Offers, threats, challenges, and warnings crackled over static as competitors circled, testing the limits of distance and daring. One rival dredge edged too close, its crew glaring across the waves, daring Shawn to reveal the riches he held. Without hesitation, Shawn bellowed commands, forcing his team to run at full capacity, buckets clanging and water spraying, sluices spilling gold into collection bins with relentless fury. "Let them watch, we'll bury them in ounces," he shouted, and the crew obeyed like soldiers in a gold-forged war. On shore, the rumor spread like wildfire. Gnome's gamblers, opportunists, and onlookers began wagering on the impossible. Would Shawn Pomrenke's mega dredge rewrite the history of the Arctic, or would it be crushed under the twin pressures of greed and the merciless storm? Every moment on that deck was a gamble against death, a dance with history, and an escalation that left the horizon alive with danger, anticipation, and the blinding glint of fortune just within reach. The storm's fury refused to relent. Waves slammed the dredge from every angle, tilting it precariously, and yet the golden sluices continued to feed, a stubborn line of wealth defying nature's wrath. Crew members fought fatigue, frostbite, and fear, but their hands never faltered on levers, their eyes never wavered from the monitors. Each bucket pulled up from the icy depths told a story of risk, skill, and the audacity of a man willing to challenge both sea and sky. Lightning cut across blackened clouds, illuminating the gleaming veins of gold spilling through the sluices, casting every man into a frame of epic struggle, heroic in its danger and its beauty. Shawn moved among them, directing, encouraging, demanding, yet somehow feeding off the chaos, each shout a fuel to the fire already burning in the hearts of those around him. Meanwhile, the rival dredges pressed closer, their engines a counterpoint to the storm, their crews straining to match Shawn's pace, to steal the glory they had only glimpsed from afar. Tension crackled like static through the air, every movement a test of nerve and skill. The first bucket from one rival scraped against ice before tipping with a whisper of failure, a warning shot to Shawn's operation that went unheeded. His team responded with precision, pushing harder, faster, refusing to let envy, fear, or nature dictate the outcome. Each rising bucket became a declaration. This was Shawn's domain, this was his haul, and nothing, not storm, rival, or legend, would take it from him. By midday, the combination of human will, machine power, and unyielding fortune had transformed the scene into chaos and brilliance intertwined. Spray from the waves flew across the deck, mingling with golden dust, turning the entire dredge into a sparkling tempest of ambition. Men shouted instructions over howling winds, eyes darting between sluices, sonar, and rival movements, while Shawn stood at the helm, a conductor orchestrating a symphony of destruction and creation. Every pull, every bucket, every ounce reinforced a simple truth. The mother vein was real, immense, and worth every ounce of risk. Even with the storm battering them and competitors circling like sharks, Shawn's dredge carved a path through the icy abyss, relentless and unstoppable. The golden pulse of each bucket rising, the roar of engines, the clash of steel and ice, and the storm's fury fused into one living, breathing moment of peril and triumph. On that deck, soaked to the bone and with hearts hammering, every crew member knew they were part of a story that would be told for generations, a story of defiance, fortune, and audacity on the frozen edge of the world. The dredge screamed like a wounded giant, engines roaring and hydraulics hissing under strain that should have shredded its steel skeleton to pieces. Every compartment leaked steam, water pooled around the mechanics' boots, and yet they sprinted from lever to lever, wrench in hand, begging Shawn to ease back before the entire system blew apart. But Shawn's gaze never faltered. History, he thought, had no patience for the cautious. Every ounce of gold counted. Every second mattered, and the risk, oh the risk, was the only thing that made victory taste sweeter. Sparks rained from overloaded circuits, pipes split with shrieking protest, and pressure gauges danced like they were possessed. Yet the sonar blipped higher and higher, confirming what the dredge was accomplishing. The mother vein was growing, richer with every sweep. The steel leviathan groaned under the impossible task, straddling that thin line between triumph and collapse, alive with the fury of a beast and the precision of a master-crafted machine. Dawn broke, and for the first time, the crew could take in what they'd wrought. Sluices overflowed with black sand streaked with flecks of gold that glittered in the rising sun like liquid fire. Hands rinsed mats, emptied pans, stacked trays, and lifted bucket after bucket in a torrent so vast it stole the breath from every man on deck. Scales tipped under the weight of hundreds of ounces, millions in raw, unprocessed wealth sliding through fingers and into bins, the sheer magnitude leaving some men dumbstruck, staring in disbelief at the metallic shimmer of fortune. Shawn moved among them, almost reverently, whispering, "This is what it feels like to win against the impossible." Even as his eyes darted back to the sonar readings, there was something darker, something unsettling. Hollow chambers yawned beneath the seabed, shifting, groaning, as though the very ground beneath them resented the theft. Support structures trembled in silence, warning that the abyss they had breached was no ordinary mine. It was a chamber, ancient and alive. The dredge's arm tore deeper, and the cameras sent back images that seemed to blur the line between reality and legend. Vaulted spaces stretched into the darkness, walls veined with quartz and flecks of gold that glittered like stars trapped in rock. Crew members whispered that some formations looked unnervingly man-made, massive pillars rising like cathedral columns, relics of a civilization swallowed by ice centuries ago. Heated arguments broke out. Scientists insisted this was natural geology. Dreamers swore they were trespassing through lost history, while Shawn shrugged and barked orders. "Ore ready for sluice? Don't stop. The air shifted. They were no longer mere miners scratching at frozen dirt. They were trespassers in a vault forbidden by time, scraping against the boundaries of a secret long buried beneath the Arctic seabed. Yet the lure of wealth, the pulse of gold, and the raw thrill of defiance kept them moving. Every bucket lifted was heavier than the last, every sweep deeper, each revelation more dangerous and more intoxicating than the one before. Shawn pushed them harder, heart hammering, eyes bright with obsession. Somewhere in that immense underwater cathedral lay riches beyond Nome's wildest legends, and nothing, not fear, not fatigue, not ice, nor steel, would stop him from uncovering every ounce. The dredge moved like a titan possessed, its steel arms clawing at the frozen floor, sluices spilling gold as if the sea itself were bleeding treasure into their hands. Crew members shouted over the roar of engines and wind, sweat freezing instantly on their brows, frostbite threatening exposed skin, but no one dared slow down. Every scoop revealed more, nuggets embedded in quartz, veins thicker than any they had ever imagined, dust that sparkled in floodlights with the intensity of sunlit snow. Shawn's mind raced, calculating yields, visualizing haul totals that would make every investor gasp, imagining the headlines screaming of impossible riches pulled from the Arctic abyss. And yet, beneath the glittering surface, the sonar warned that the cavern beneath the dredge was unstable, a fragile architecture of ice, stone, and gold, straining under the weight of ambition and machinery. Despite the danger, the dredge continued its relentless assault. Massive chunks of frozen seabed broke away with metallic screams, sluices overflowing, buckets shaking as they rose through water tinged with gold dust. Crewmen moved like extensions of the machine, synchronized, precise, driven by adrenaline and the intoxicating scent of success. Every motion was a calculated gamble. One wrong tilt, one overloaded bucket, one misstep, and the entire operation could collapse into the abyss below. Yet even with danger pressing from every angle, the images returned by the cameras mesmerized the crew. Vast halls, glittering walls, quartz pillars that shimmered with veins of gold, as if the earth itself had decided to pay tribute. Shawn didn't stop. He barked orders, corrected angles, adjusted suction arms, and guided the dredge like a maestro conducting a symphony of metal, ice, and fire. He could feel the pulse of the cavern beneath, the hum of gold flowing through its veins, the quiet warning of the sea beneath that threatened to reclaim what had been stolen. Each bucket rose heavier than the last, each scoop closer to secrets not meant for mortal hands. The crew followed blindly, hearts pounding, hands raw, faces streaked with frost and grime, as history and legend collided in a violent dance beneath the frozen waves. And as the dredge tore through the icy cathedral, the crew knew that they were witnessing something extraordinary. They were touching wealth that could change lives, uncovering secrets hidden for centuries, and staring into a cavern that defied explanation, a place that blurred the line between geology and myth. The air on deck was electric, charged with anticipation and the thrill of conquest, as the mega dredge continued to claw deeper, sluices overflowing, sonar readings climbing, and Shawn's obsession growing with each rising bucket. There was no turning back, no hesitation, only the raw, unrelenting pursuit of gold and glory in the most dangerous frozen frontier on Earth. Without warning, the seabed beneath the mega dredge cracked with a thunderous groan, splitting like glass under impossible pressure. The deck lurched violently as steel beams buckled and twisted, chains snapping and cranes collapsing under their own weight. Alarms shrieked, drowning out the roar of the waves as icy water surged into compartments, pulling machinery and men alike toward the freezing depths. Crewmen screamed, clinging to rails and cables, white-knuckled and gasping, their breaths steaming in the Arctic air as the dredge tilted at impossible angles. Millions in gear and gold teetered on the brink, sluice bins spilling nuggets and dust into the rising water, a fragile fortune poised to vanish beneath the icy abyss. Engineers yelled over the chaos to abandon ship, but Shawn's voice cut like a cannon, commanding defiance. No one leaves. Not until we take every ounce. Cameras captured the surreal and impossible, man and machine clawing against the merciless sea, steel screaming, waves crashing, gold glittering in a relentless struggle for survival. Every creak and snap of the dredge was a heartbeat against annihilation, a rhythm of chaos punctuated by triumph and terror entwined. Hours passed in a blur of adrenaline and sheer will. The storm and collapsing seabed seemed to conspire to destroy them, yet slowly, methodically, the crew salvaged the hull. Sluices were cleared, buckets emptied, and pans washed, revealing towers of gold bars, nuggets, and dust piled into mountains of raw wealth that shimmered like molten sunlight against the frost-covered steel. Each ounce weighed like history in their hands, proof that the impossible had been wrested from the Arctic itself. Shawn stood amidst it all, chest heaving, arms outstretched across the golden towers, whispering almost reverently, "This is the Bering's tribute, and we earned every ounce." On the horizon, rival dredges lingered, engines idling, crews staring in disbelief. Dreams of overtaking Shawn had evaporated like morning mist, leaving only silence and the stunned acknowledgement that this haul belonged entirely to him. The mega dredge, battered and scarred, might never sail again, its future uncertain. Yet in that moment, it stood immortal, a monument to audacity, skill, and raw human will. Word of the haul rippled through Alaska like wildfire. By midday, Nome was a frenzy of speculation and awe. Tales spread of Shawn Pomrenke ripping $20 million from the icy depths in a single strike, a feat so bold and extreme that some whispered it could never be repeated. Opinions split. Some hailed him as a hero, a pioneer who stared death in the face and claimed victory. Others muttered about madness, a man gambling lives and machines against forces no human should dare to challenge. Engineers inspected the dredge, declaring it a ruin of twisted steel, corroded pipes, and fractured hydraulics, yet Shawn only smirked, unbowed by both destruction and praise. He turned to reporters, the cold wind slicing across his face, and said with a grin, "Gold's not done with me. The Bering still hides more, and I'll be the one to take it." The legend of Shawn's mega dredge spread far beyond Nome, transcending the realm of mining to become myth. Around campfires and in hushed taverns, stories circulated of the massive steel leviathan that clawed gold from frozen veins, survived collapse, storms, and rivals, and returned with riches so immense they defied belief. Children of prospectors listened wide-eyed to tales of the frozen sea's fury, of men risking everything for a glimmer of molten treasure, and of one man who challenged the Arctic itself, and won. Even as the dredge rested in its final berth, battered and silent, the echo of its engines, the shimmer of its gold, and the audacity of its captain lingered in memory. Shawn Pomrenke had not only claimed wealth, he had carved a saga into the frozen heart of Alaska, a story of ambition, courage, and myth that would be told for generations, each telling growing larger, more legendary, as the Bering Sea continued to whisper of the treasures still waiting beneath its icy depths. As the Arctic sun reflected off snow and ice, painting the horizon in gold and fire, the dredge's legacy was cemented. Every man who had served on deck knew they had participated in something extraordinary, something that blurred the lines between mining, legend, and the raw, elemental power of human obsession. Rivals might try, storms might come, and ice might claim machines and men, but the story of Shawn Pomrenke's haul would endure. The gold, the struggle, the triumph against unimaginable odds, they were all immortalized in that single breathtaking strike beneath the frozen waters. And even as whispers spread of other veins untouched and untapped, the Arctic knew that one man had risen above fear, above danger, and above history itself to claim a fortune. And in doing so, had become a legend that would echo across every campfire where gold fever burns. The mega dredge, silent now, bore its scars like metals, a steel titan that had clawed at time, ice, and the unforgiving Bering Sea. Its story was etched into the icy seabed it had conquered, a testament to human daring and relentless ambition. Shawn walked along the deck, frost cracking under heavy boots, his eyes tracing the horizon where the sun met frozen waves. The glint of gold reflected in his gaze, and a small, knowing smirk formed on his face. This was not the end. The haul was monumental, yes, but the Arctic still held secrets, and Shawn Pomrenke had proven one immutable truth. Where others saw death and impossibility, he saw opportunity, challenge, and legend. The story of this $20 million strike, of defiance against nature and fate, would resonate for decades, an enduring tale of ambition, risk, and triumph written in ice, steel, and gold.